Okay, hello and welcome for this quick walkthrough through StructureMASST. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you have already watched our video on exact structure searches, because here we will only be talking about modification or analog searches. So for this, we will be looking at an example that we have already looked at in our manuscript, particularly for this drug molecule here. So the first thing we need to do before we can do any modification searches is to retrieve all the MSM scans we have available for this molecule itself. So for that, we will click Get Available Spectra with exact structure match enabled. If we now go down, we see again we have a lot of spectra for this molecule. We will have to adapt the way we are searching the raw data in order to get modification and analog results. So for that, we have to select our fast database, which will allow us to do actual raw data matching rather than relying on our pre-computed annotations. This will be a little bit slower. However, it allows us to do the modification searches we want to do now. So for that, we will have to enable modification search here. We already see there are a bunch of parameters that we have access to for modification searches specifically. By default, we are allowing for additions as well as eliminations. However, if you're only interested in one of these, you can deselect whatever you're not interested in. Further, you can limit the search to only specific types of modifications. So for example, if you were to put an oxygen here, then you would only be searching for analogs that differ by a single oxygen from your query structure. You're also able to define a certain MZ difference to the query molecule that you have provided at the top of StructureMASST. Another useful setting is that you only allow for matches if certain conditions are met. One that I find especially useful is this one here, where you only allow a modification to be reported if the unmodified molecule is found in the very same file. This is especially useful for drug molecules, as we would generally assume if we see a modified version of a drug, we also should see the unmodified drug in the very same sample. I really like this setting also because the false discovery rate will always be higher if you have analog or modification search enabled. So what we will do now is we will click on Search Raw Data. As I mentioned before, this is generally taking a little bit longer, as we have to search through about 1.8 billion scans live, and this can take some time. Also, we are not just doing this for a single scan, but we are doing this for all 73 scans that are provided here for this particular molecule. However, in this case, it's already done. So you can see here we have 890 different samples matching. If you go down, we see again our overview the way we are used to. However, since we were doing modification searches here, we will look at some different views that we didn't look at before. Specifically, we have already one suggested here for modification searches. So we will click here on Apply. Once I do this, it will set the columns here to delta mass and modified here for the first two columns. So we will now see here the delta mass, and here we will see if something is modified, an elimination, or an addition. If we go a little bit down, we can already see that there are now some additional things that we can look at. And we can, for example, look for some of these mass deltas. So here, for example, we have a mass difference of about 16. So this is probably an oxygen. And if we click on View Modification site here, what we will be able to see is the suspected modification site of this particular molecule. So you can see here that most likely the modification is on this side of the molecule if we go by the mass spec data. We can also look at some other things. So one thing I always like to look at if I do modification searches is the LC peak. For that, I can click here. And if we go a little bit down here, we can now see the chromatograms. This is always very important for analog searches because we want to make sure that these are actual modifications of the molecule that are not just insource fragments. So you can see here we have our here we have the one molecule, and here we can see we have the peak for the other molecules. And indeed, it looks like these are multiple peaks. So probably we have more than one hydroxylation here at different sites and not just one, which is interesting to know. We also see here that one of the columns we have selected is the disease column. So we can see a lot of the matches that we get here are to people that have actual reported diseases. That makes sense because this was a drug molecule. So this was everything for the analog search that I wanted to show you. And I hope this was helpful.